If he makes you feel like an option instead of a priority, you have to take a step back and ask yourself one simple but crucial question. Why am I accepting this? Because let's be clear, when a man values you, he doesn't treat you like an afterthought. He doesn't keep you on the back burner while he explores other options, only circling back when it's convenient for him. He doesn't make you feel like you're always waiting for a sign that he truly cares. You'll never have to question where you stand, because a man who genuinely wants to be with you will make sure you know it. The harsh truth is, if someone is treating you like an option, it's because they believe they can. It's because somewhere along the way, you've allowed that behavior to slide. Not intentionally, because no one consciously signs up for a relationship where they're undervalued, but through small compromises, through rationalizations, through telling yourself, well, maybe he's just busy. Maybe he just needs more time. Maybe he does care, he's just not good at showing it. And that's how it starts. You convince yourself that the bare minimum is enough. But, let's be honest, if someone were to ask you, is this the kind of love you imagine for yourself? Would you say yes? A man who wants to be with you will make you feel secure in the relationship. You won't be waiting for texts that never come, wondering why he's suddenly distant, or feeling like you have to fight for his attention. You won't be stuck in an endless cycle of trying to decode his mixed signals. You won't have to strategize every little move you make, wondering if reaching out first will push him away or if pulling back will make him chase you. Love shouldn't feel like a game of chess. It shouldn't feel like a performance where you're constantly auditioning for the role of someone worthy of his love. When someone truly cares about you, they make the effort. They don't just tell you they care in passing, they show you with their actions. They make plans with you and follow through. They check in, not because they have to, but because they want to. They include you in their life, in their decisions, in their future. They don't disappear for days and reappear with a half-hearted excuse. They don't make you feel like you're waiting in line behind everything else that's more important to them. And if someone is doing that to you, you have to recognize it for what it is, a lack of genuine interest and respect. Somewhere deep down, you already know that. You already feel it in those moments when his actions don't match his words, when he keeps you at arm's length, when you get that sinking feeling in your stomach that something isn't right, and yet you hold on hoping something will change. Maybe if you just give it more time. Maybe if you just prove you're worth it. Maybe if you just love him harder. But love isn't a one-sided effort. It isn't about proving yourself to someone who doesn't see your value. It isn't about waiting for him to wake up one day and suddenly realize you're the best thing that ever happened to him. If he can't see that now, he never truly will. Think about it. How much time have you spent worrying about what he wants, what he needs, what he's thinking, instead of asking yourself what you want and deserve? A man who values you will never leave you in a position where you have to wonder if he does. And the moment you start feeling like an option, you have to make a choice. Either keep waiting for someone who will never prioritize you, or walk away and create space for someone who will. The truth is, when you accept being treated like an option, you send a message, not just to him, but to yourself, that your needs don't matter as much as his, that his time is more valuable than yours, that his inconsistency is worth tolerating just so you don't lose him completely. But losing someone who doesn't truly value you is not a loss. It's a gain. It's reclaiming your self-respect. It's refusing to settle for less than you deserve. It's reminding yourself that the right person will never make you feel like you have to fight for a place in their life. So if he makes you feel like an option, it's time to make him the one who gets left behind. Because the love you're waiting for, the love that is steady and certain and real, that love won't require you to beg for it. If he avoids commitment or strings you along, it's not because he's unsure or just taking his time. It's not because he's waiting for the perfect moment to be with you. It's because he's already decided that he doesn't want to commit, but he does want to keep you around. And that's the part that stings the most. He wants the comfort of your presence, the reassurance of your affection, and the ego boost of knowing you'll always be there, even when he gives you nothing concrete in return. Maybe you've had those conversations where he says, I just need to figure things out, or I really care about you, but I'm not ready for something serious. And what happens? You wait. You convince yourself that with enough time, patience, and love, he'll change his mind. But let's be real. If someone truly values you, they won't risk losing you. They won't make you feel like a question mark in your own love story. The truth is, a man who wants to be with you will make it happen. He won't need endless time to decide. He won't hesitate when it comes to making you a part of his life. When someone sees your worth, they act accordingly. So when he tells you he's not ready, don't hear that as not yet. Hear it as not with you. That's the hardest pill to swallow, but it's also the most freeing. So why do we stay? Because deep down, we hope we're the exception. We hope that if we show up enough, prove our worth enough, and love hard enough, he'll wake up one day and realize he can't live without us. But let me tell you something. Love doesn't work that way. The more you try to prove your worth to someone who already sees you as optional, the more you lose yourself in the process. You start making excuses for him. You tell yourself he's busy, that maybe he's been hurt before, that he's under a lot of pressure. And while those things may be true, none of them change this fundamental fact. If he wanted to be with you, he would be. When a man is truly interested, he doesn't let obstacles stand in his way. He finds a way to be there. Some of you have been stuck in this cycle for months, maybe even years. You keep hoping he'll change. You keep hoping for a sign that he's finally ready. But what are you really holding on to? The version of him you've created in your head? The moments when he gives just enough to keep you from leaving? That's not love. That's emotional breadcrumbs. And you deserve so much more than that. A relationship should feel like mutual investment. You shouldn't be the only one showing up. You shouldn't be the only one planning the dates, initiating the conversations, or trying to keep things moving forward. If it constantly feels like you're pushing while he's pulling away, you're already in a losing game. Now, I know what you might be thinking. What if he just needs time? What if he's dealing with personal struggles? What if I walk away too soon and miss out on something real? But let's flip the script for a second. If he truly saw you as someone he wanted in his life, wouldn't he be afraid of losing you? Wouldn't he fight for you instead of expecting you to wait in uncertainty? The right person won't keep you on standby. They won't make you question whether they care. They won't create situations where you feel like you have to chase their love. Real love doesn't feel like a puzzle you have to solve. It feels like clarity, like peace, like certainty. And the moment you realize that is the moment you start reclaiming your power. It's not your job to convince someone to see your worth. It's not your job to wait indefinitely while someone figures out if they want to be with you. And it's definitely not your job to settle for a half love when you're capable of so much more. If he's not choosing you, choose yourself. Walk away, not because you don't care, but because you do, because you respect yourself enough to know that you are not someone's second choice, backup plan, or emotional crutch. You are worth being chosen fully, completely, and without hesitation. If he makes you feel like you're not enough, if you constantly find yourself questioning your worth, wondering if you're too much or not good enough, you need to stop and take a hard look at what's happening, because a relationship should never make you doubt your own value. It should reinforce it. It should make you feel more certain of yourself, not less. But the moment you start to shrink, to feel like you have to walk on eggshells or change who you are just to keep someone interested, that's when you need to recognize the dangerous territory you're in. You see, in a healthy relationship, you feel safe. You feel seen. You feel like the person you're with admires you for who you are, not just for what you can do for them. But when you're with someone who undermines your confidence, it's a slow and steady erosion. It doesn't happen all at once. It's not like one day you wake up and suddenly feel unworthy. No, it happens over time in the small, subtle ways they make you feel like you need to prove yourself. Maybe it's in the way they joke about your insecurities. Maybe it's in the way they compare you to someone else, making you feel like you're always competing. Maybe it's in how they dismiss your feelings, making you question whether you're overreacting when you're simply expressing what hurts. This kind of behavior is dangerous because it makes you feel like you need to earn their love. And love should never be something you have to earn. It should be freely given. But when someone makes you feel like you have to chase it, like you have to constantly be good enough to deserve their attention, they are controlling you in the worst possible way. Because the more they make you question yourself, the more you rely on them for validation. And that's how they keep you hooked, by making you feel like their approval is the only thing that can make you feel worthy. The truth is, if you ever feel like you have to prove your worth in a relationship, you are already in the wrong one. The right person will never make you feel like you need to fight for a place in their life. They will never make you feel like you're only lovable when you meet certain conditions. They will love you for who you are, not for who they think you should be. And I know it's hard to recognize when you're in it. Because the thing is, people who undermine your confidence don't do it in obvious ways. They don't come right out and say, you're not good enough. No, they do it in ways that make you doubt yourself just enough to keep you in a constant state of needing their approval. Maybe they don't compliment you the way they used to, so you start trying hard. Maybe they start pulling away just enough to make you feel like you need to work to get them back. Maybe they keep you guessing, never giving you real certainty about how they feel. And every time you feel like you're losing them, you try a little harder. You give a little more. And before you know it, you've lost yourself in the process. But let me tell you something. The right person won't make you feel like you have to earn their love. The right person will remind you of your worth, not make you question it. They will make you feel more confident, not less. And if you ever find yourself in a relationship where you feel like you have to shrink, where you feel like you have to silence yourself, where you feel like you are less than the incredible person you know deep down you are, then that's your sign that you need to let them go. Because staying with someone who makes you feel small will never lead to a life where you feel truly happy and fulfilled. You deserve to be with someone who makes you feel like you are enough just as you are. Not when you lose weight, not when you change your personality, not when you become who they want you to be, but exactly as you are in this moment. And if someone doesn't see that, then they are not the person for you. So don't settle. Don't stay in a relationship where you constantly have to prove yourself. Don't waste your time with someone who makes you feel like you need to fight for their affection. Love isn't a battle you have to win. It's a safe place where you get to be exactly who you are and still be chosen every single day. If he makes you feel otherwise, you need to let him go. When you care about someone, it's natural to want to give. You invest your time, your energy, your love. You think about them, plan thoughtful surprises, send the first text, make the effort to keep things exciting. But here's where it becomes dangerous. When you're the only one doing it. When every plan, every moment of connection, every repair after a fight relies on you, that's not love. That's a one-sided job. And let me tell you something, love isn't supposed to be exhausting. We have this tendency to romanticize effort. We say things like, if I just love them enough, they'll see my value. We tell ourselves that relationships take work. So when we're the only ones working, we assume that's just part of the deal. But real relationships, the ones that last, the ones that feel good, are based on mutual effort, not on one person carrying the weight while the other simply enjoys the ride. If you're constantly initiating, if you're the one always checking in, always making excuses for their lack of effort, always giving them the benefit of the doubt even when they don't deserve it, then you are building a relationship alone. And the hard truth, if you stopped trying, the whole thing would fall apart. That's how you know. If you disappeared for a day, a week, would they even notice? Or would they just move on? Because for them, the relationship only exists when you breathe life into it. You need to ask yourself, are they meeting you where you are? Are they matching your investment? If you constantly feel like you're chasing the relationship, you're not in a relationship, you're in a game. And no one ever wins when love becomes a game of proving your worth. Think about the times you've been there for them, the nights you've stayed up listening to their problems, the moments you've been their biggest cheerleader, the times you've sacrificed your own needs just to make sure they were okay. Now ask yourself, how often have they done the same for you? Not in words, not in the occasional, I appreciate you, but in actions. Love is what someone does, not what they say. If they're not showing up for you in the way you show up for them, that's a problem. And if you're constantly excusing their lack of effort, telling yourself they're just not good at expressing themselves, or maybe I'm expecting too much, that's an even bigger problem. Because here's the reality. When someone truly cares, they show up. They don't let you carry the relationship alone. They don't wait for you to reach out. They want to reach out to you. They don't need reminders to be thoughtful. They don't need to be convinced to care. People prioritize what they value. And if they're not prioritizing you, then you have your answer. But let's be honest, this is the hardest thing to accept. Because if you've invested so much, if you've built so many memories, if you've pictured a future with this person, it's painful to admit that they're just not as invested as you are. We hold on to potential, onto the idea of what this could be, instead of facing the reality of what it actually is. And the worst part? The more we give, the harder it is to walk away. We convince ourselves that leaving means all our effort was for nothing. But that's a lie. Leaving doesn't mean you lost. It means you finally recognize that your love, your energy, your time, they are valuable. And you deserve someone who sees that, because here's the thing. You should never have to beg for effort. You should never have to convince someone to care. You should never have to chase someone just to feel chosen. Love should feel like a two-way street. And if you're the only one walking, then maybe it's time to stop and see who actually turns around to meet you where you are. If they don't, then you already have your answer. If he disrespects your boundaries, you have to understand something. This isn't just a red flag. It's a neon sign flashing in your face, telling you exactly what kind of person you're dealing with. And yet so many people ignore it. They make excuses. They think, maybe he didn't mean to. Maybe he just doesn't understand me. Maybe if I explain it better, he'll get it. But here's the truth. Someone who truly cares about you will never need repeated explanations about why your feelings, your needs, your space, or your limits matter. They just will. Now let's break this down. Because boundary crossing doesn't always show up in the big obvious ways. It's not always about someone yelling at you, blatantly disrespecting you, or betraying you in some grand fashion. More often, it's in the subtle ways. It's in how he dismisses your concerns as if they're not real. It's in how he pushes your limits just a little, just enough that you feel uncomfortable, but not enough that you feel justified in walking away. At least, not yet. It's in how he apologizes just enough to keep you from leaving, but never enough to actually change. At first, it might feel small. Maybe you tell him that something bothers you, and instead of taking it seriously, he jokes about it. He says, "Oh, come on, you're overreacting. Why are you being so sensitive?" And you hesitate. You wonder, am I overreacting? You start questioning yourself instead of questioning him. And that's how it starts. The moment someone makes you doubt your own reality, your own right to have boundaries, you've already begun losing yourself in the relationship. And let's talk about why this happens. Because it's not about intelligence, it's not about strength, and it's certainly not about self-worth. It happens because when we care about someone, we want to believe the best in them. We want to give them grace. We think, well, nobody's perfect. Relationships require compromise. Maybe I'm being too rigid. And while compromise is part of any relationship, it is not the same as sacrificing who you are to make someone else comfortable. The moment you start shrinking, the moment you start silencing yourself just to keep the peace, you've already lost a part of yourself. So what does it actually look like when someone respects your boundaries? It's not just that they don't cross them, it's that they actively care about them. They don't just listen when you say, "Hey, this makes me uncomfortable." They adjust. They make an effort. They don't argue with your feelings, they validate them. And they don't just respect your boundaries because you fight for them, they respect them because they respect you. And that's the difference. Now, let's flip this around. If someone doesn't respect your boundaries, what does that really mean? It means they don't respect your emotions. It means they value their own desires, their own needs, their own comfort over yours. It means that at the end of the day, their happiness matters more to them than your well-being. And that is not love. That is not partnership. That is not someone who is ready to be in a relationship. And here's where most people get stuck. They see this happening, but they don't know what to do. They think, if I just explain it one more time, maybe he'll finally understand. So they explain, and they keep explaining until one day they realize they've spent months, maybe years, just trying to convince someone to treat them with basic decency. And that's when it hits them. This was never about misunderstanding. This was never about him not getting it. He got it. He just didn't care enough to change. So what do? You walk away. You let go. You stop waiting for someone to become the person you wish they were, and you start accepting who they've already shown you they are. Because the longer you wait, the harder it becomes. The more time you invest, the more you feel like you have to make it work. But you don't. You never have to stay where you aren't valued. And I get it. It's not easy. It's painful, because leaving doesn't just mean losing them. It means losing the version of the relationship you hoped for. But what you gain is so much bigger. You gain your peace, your confidence, your ability to trust yourself again. And most importantly, you make room for someone who will actually cherish the things that someone else took for granted. So if he disrespects your boundaries, don't make excuses. Don't explain one more time. Don't wait for him to become a better man. The right person won't make you fight to be respected. They'll meet you there effortlessly, because to them, valuing you is not an obligation. It's an instinct. There's something incredibly powerful about recognizing patterns. You see, people are creatures of habit. And when someone shows you how they operate, believe them. If a man only shows up when he needs something, what does that tell you? It tells you exactly where you stand in his life. Not as a priority, not as someone he's truly invested in, but as a resource, a fallback, someone who provides value when it's convenient for him. And here's the hardest part to accept. He's not confused. He's not lost. He's not unaware of what he's doing. He knows. And deep down, so do you. In the beginning, it might feel exciting. He reaches out sporadically, just enough to keep you intrigued. Maybe he sends a charming text when you least expect it, just when you finally stop thinking about him. Maybe he shows up after weeks of silence, telling you how much he's missed you, how he's been so busy, but you're still on his mind. And that moment of validation feels intoxicating, because it makes you think maybe he does care. Maybe he just has a lot going on. But what happens next? He disappears again. And now you're left wondering what you did wrong, why he suddenly pulled back, why he only ever comes around when he needs something. And let's be honest, it's not always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's the small things. He calls when he's bored. He texts when he's lonely. He reaches out when he needs emotional support, a distraction, or simply an ego boost. But when you need something, when you need reassurance, consistency, or even just a basic response, he's nowhere to be found. This is the moment you have to ask yourself, am I here to be a convenience? Am I here to be used when it suits him? Or am I looking for something real? Because here's the truth. Real relationships are not built on convenience. They are built on effort, reciprocity, and showing up, even when it's not easy. A man who is truly invested in you will be there, not just when he wants something, but when you need something too. He won't disappear when you're struggling. He won't ignore you when you need support. He won't treat you like an afterthought. Love, real love, is not about being there only when it's fun, when it's convenient, when it benefits him. It's about being present, even when there's nothing to gain. Now, let's talk about why it's so hard to walk away. Because if it were easy, you wouldn't still be here. There's a part of you that hopes that one day he'll wake up and realize what he has, that one day he'll finally see your worth, finally appreciate everything you bring to the table. And that's the part of you that keeps giving him chances. That's the part that answers his texts, that picks up the phone, that forgives his absence over and over again. Because deep down, you think that if you just show him enough love, if you just give him enough time, he'll change. But he won't. Not because you're not enough, not because you're not worthy, but because he doesn't have to. Every time you let him back in, every time you accept the bare minimum, you teach him that this is enough, that he doesn't need to do more, that he can keep showing up only when it suits him, and you'll still be there. And the longer you allow this, the harder it becomes to break free, because now it's not just about him. It's about the attachment you've built, the connection you've invested in, the hope that keeps you hanging on. But hope is a dangerous thing when it blinds you to reality, the reality that he is showing you every single time he disappears, every time he ignores your needs, every time he proves that he's only here for what he can get. That's not love. That's not care. That's self-interest. And you deserve more than that. So what do? You make a choice to stop answering the phone when he calls at midnight, a choice to stop justifying his behavior with excuses that even you don't believe anymore, a choice to stop settling for breadcrumbs when you deserve a full meal. Because the moment you stop accepting the bare minimum is the moment you create space for something better, for someone who doesn't just show up when they need something, but when you do. And I know it's hard. It's hard because part of you is scared that if you let go, there won't be anyone else, that maybe this is the best you can get, that maybe, just maybe, if you hold on a little longer, he'll finally come around. But let me ask you this. If he's not showing up now, if he's not prioritizing you now, if he's not making the effort now, what makes you think that's going to change? The right person won't make you chase them. They won't make you feel like you have to prove your worth. They won't leave you questioning whether they actually care. They'll show you in the way they treat you, in the way they show up, in the way they make you feel secure. And you'll know the difference because it will feel easy, it will feel consistent, it will feel like love, not like a game you're always losing. So here's your moment. The moment you decide that you are no longer an option for someone who treats you like one, the moment you choose to stop waiting for him to change and instead choose to walk away. Because the right person won't need you to question where you stand. And if someone does, then that's your answer.